Hello everyone, we are live. So what that means is that I'm going to be showing you guys tonight how to create a sort of knockback flying effect. It's like, say, there's a pencil here, then all of a sudden something just causes it to go, phew! Used this in a couple of videos before, namely Wand versus Staff. There's a couple scenes where Daniel goes flying. I also just recently used it in my Force of Nature video, which you can check out here. But the basic concept that we will be looking at in just a moment here is going to be looking something like this. Give me a moment. There we go. Okay, so now you guys should be seeing what I'm seeing on my screen. Throughout this, I'm going to be using it to show you what exactly it is I am doing on screen. So what we're going to be looking at doing is something along the lines of something akin to this. You can see the basic effect right there. He just goes, well, flying. So first off, I'm going to open up After Effects. Now, I'm assuming with this tutorial that everyone here knows how to use After Effects and knows how to just operate and move around in it. There's going to be a couple of hotkeys that I'll be using throughout the video, and I really highly suggest that you learn them yourselves, but I'll be naming them as I go. Two of the main ones are going to be Control-Z, which is undo, and it's undo for a lot of programs, not just After Effects. Control-Z works in many different programs. The notable exception being Photoshop, which is Control-Shift-Z, but Control-Z works, but only for one step, which is kind of annoying. The other one is Control-Shift-D, which will take this timeline here and split the clip. You'll see that in a second. And Control-D, which will duplicate the clip. Those are the main ones that I use. But to get started here, I'm going to be bringing in my own footage. I am not going to be providing a download link for the very specific reason that I believe that you should be filming your own footage in order to be creating your tutorials and things of that nature. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to be finding, first off, my clip that I used. I believe it is this clip right here. If I am right, I am right, and that's great. So simply put drag and drop into After Effects, and you should have your clip ready to go. Now, my clip is somewhat long, and there's quite a bit of footage that I don't need, so make sure that you are just getting right down to the parts and pieces that you need. This is me dressing up in front of the camera. Yes, I film all this for the very specific reason that I do not want it to be messed with later. So right here we have our ending clip of the guy getting shot. So I actually did a couple takes of this, so let's find the best one that we can. All right. I like this one. He comes in nice and far. So I'm going to be pressing that nifty hotkey Control-Shift-D, which should separate the two just like that. I'm going to take this, put it at the end, drag it aside here. I don't need to bother with it for now. And now I am going to be dragging this piece right here. If it'll let me give me my mouse to move it. There we go. All right, so the next part that I'm going to need to be finding is when I'm actually just running up and shooting at the dude. So I did one take there right at the end, and that's going to be the take we use. So once again, that handy hotkey Control-Shift-D. This time, select the back piece and press the delete button to delete it. And now I have my first initial clip of me running up and shooting. Now I also don't want this piece in here of me sort of backing up, at least initially. So we're going to also Control-Shift-D once again, and we're going to press delete. Now I have the clip of me running up and shooting. And I also have the clip of the guy getting blasted back. Now, this isn't going to be the way that it finally looks. The final clip in the end is much more fast and shoots, and he goes off flying. And that's going to be fairly easy to do. But the key here is going to be getting what we want down first. Now I'm going to take these two layers, and just by simply dragging it up, I'm going to take it and ensure that the top layer is me running up and shooting at the guy. The other thing too that you can do is you can actually press these arrows right here in After Effects to go frame by frame if you want to do such a thing. It's quite handy for certain effects and making sure your timing's right. So right about here we can see that his muzzle flare is right about where it starts. So right there is going to be the point where we want to start our man that is going to be being launched. So what I'm doing right now is I am dragging this around, bring it right to the front here. Now, the main issue that we're having with this is that we can't see where our person is in adjacency to him. The way I set this up too was that I also went and I filmed one portion of me getting shot, and then I filmed the second portion of me getting shot. If you have this all in one clip, then that works even better. You won't have to do any of the cloning techniques. So this is a bit of a hybrid of a being knocked back and being cloned. Although if you're running into issues, using the cloning technique can help out with that as well. Anyways, so right back into the tutorial here. I am going to be, let me think about this for, yep, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to be clicking this, clicking the drop-down arrow. Lots of really nifty features are hidden inside the drop-down arrow. For what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be turning down the opacity. Now, the reason I'm doing this is to see the timing. So right now you can see me right there on the right there, the scout sort of character is a little bit, so to speak, he's kind of ghostly. Okay, I didn't even realize that thing was there. Uh-oh. So now if I take this scroller bar, I can see right when he starts to get knocked back. Now, the other thing too is that you can get finer manipulation of the timeline down here the more zoomed in you are. And you zoom in by pressing the little mountain icon right there. So now he's getting knocked back right there. So right about there is what we'll do. And if we need to make it even more snappier and zippier, we can always just delete a frame. So right there is going to be when he is being launched. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop all this stuff up. And because I don't want this guy to seem to be sort of running out of nowhere, so to speak, I'm going to take this and, okay, opacity is 100% here. Form opacity is at 56%. So what we have right now is our guy running towards him, and right about here is where he should be shooting. Now, the reason we lined all this up was so that when it comes to actually creating the effect, we have it ready to go and all lined up and everything like that. That may have been poor wording, but you'll start to see. So what I just did was I grabbed the pen tool, which is actually the masking tool in After Effects. What I'm just going to do right now is I'm going to just basically make a circle out of this guy right here. And all of a sudden, this guy pops up, and it's really, really super cool, right? But why does that work? I'm going to get off screen sharing and show you guys kind of a little bit of a example of how that works. And it's important for understanding the basics of After Effects. Just kind of fast forward a bit in this broadcast if you're seeing it in the past, if you want to just skip past this part. So I'm just going to show you. So, okay, so I'm back here. So basically how After Effects works is what's called layers. Every single one of those blue bars that you just now saw is what's called a layer. Think of a layer as just a bunch of stacks of papers all on top of each other. I'm going to grab this piece of art that I did right here, just to give you guys an example. And if my stomach is in the picture, I am so sorry about that. So what it is take this piece of paper that I did. It's a cartoon of me, right? Now let's say a layer is just one of these, right? Now imagine that you could just infinitely copy this layer and stack it on top of each other. If you were to cut a piece of that paper out that's in the same circle, and we're able to perfectly place it back on top of this, it would look no different, right? Now, imagine you were doing that in After Effects. That's basically what's happening in After Effects. And I think it's kind of important to understand that if you're new to After Effects. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to get right back into the tutorial right now. So just give me a sec to transition back to screen sharing here. All right. There we go. Okay, so now we're back to the tutorial. So now that I've explained how the cloning technique works, now I have it ready to go. So provided my timing was correct, should kind of be here, and then boom. Yeah, we're both being launched. Okay, cool. So the issue I'm seeing right here right now is that with it as it is, our man right here doesn't have enough time to run in, right? What I'm going to do right here is I'm going to take this whole entire thing and slide it back to the point that I want to run in from. All right. let's just say here, I want him to run in from here. So I'm going to take this because now, actually, no, I don't need to do that. So now he has appeared and now he's being launched. So now the timing's correct and everything seems to be working. Now, what the issue is with all this right now is that it looks like I'm jumping, which is not what we want for the final product. There's also no muzzle flare, which we will get right into. So what I'm going to do for ease of simplicity and so that I'm not getting all the layers confused is that this is done. I want this to stay done. I don't want to be messing with this at all anymore. Except for one thing later, and I'll show you once we're ready to do that. But not yet. And this is only for certain applicable projects. If it's not exactly this footage, then don't worry about it. If there's something in front of your footage, you'll see what I'm talking about later. But anyways, I am rambling. Let's get back to it. So our first step is going to be making this guy launch back. But in order to do that, like I said, I want this to be simpler. So what I did is I right-clicked on, after selecting both of these, Shift and select both. I'm going to go to Pre-Compose. And Pre-Compose is ready to go, and I'm just going to name it whatever I want to. It's good habit to name it. However, I am guilty of not naming my pre-compositions all the time, so let's just call this base layer. So we have our base layer and boom. Right, okay, so this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted just one piece of all this together. So next up is going to be taking our man right here and sending him going, which is going to be very nifty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to Control D to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to go through the ever so pleasant task of rotoscoping this poor man right here. So let's see, let's get a position where I am all the way up and flying without this piece of red blocking it. I'd say here is a pretty good layer. So we want this to come in at basically this time period. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Control Shift D once again, delete that, and now I'm going to select this layer here. And because this is the duplicated layer, anything I do will not affect the bottom layer, provided I am doing this right. I am going to take my pen tool and I am going to do what's called rotoscoping. Rotoscoping is a pain in the butt. Try to avoid it at all costs, but sometimes it is necessary for the project at hand. So what I am doing is simply tracing the outline of this poor fellow being blasted back by the shotgun. And of course, you can do the shotgun muzzle flare at any time point that you wish to do so. But for now, I'm going to go with the more complicated part, which is making this man fly. Also, heads up, this is my first tutorial, so if I am mixed up or I am not doing the best at explaining and showing you guys stuff, please don't fault me. It is simply the fact that I am brand new to creating these. I also don't have any editing software to do this on, so I am just streaming it live. Fun. If I could fast forward this part, I would, but I can't. So I want it to look relatively good. Now, you don't have to do this necessarily the most fully detailed, but it is a good idea considering the fact that you want this to be on a YouTube short or professional or however you like it to be. So now what that did was, it looks like it did nothing, right? That's where you're wrong. You're very wrong. So now if I select this, I can take them, and I have a copy of this man that I can just la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Woo! Yep, so if I want to send this man flying, I can, but it's not going to be exactly like that. After Effects, it would love it if it was that easy, but it's not. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to take and press Control Z, which is undo, to make sure that he isn't being moved around. And next up, what we're going to be needing to do as well is put in our backplate. Now, if you don't have a backplate, that really sucks, and there is another way to do it. It's called, it's using the clone stamp tool and basically just building the background from scratch out of the other information in the scene. We're not going to be doing that today because it is a pain in the butt, and I happen to film a backplate. What a backplate is it's basically just a blank piece of footage that's going behind your shot that's the exact same thing as it is, but without the actors in it, so you can reference it and utilize it. So if we were to just turn off all these different things, which I can do by pressing the eyeball button, we can see that originally when I started filming this, there is a blank space with no one in it. This is useful. That's why I say whenever you're out shooting a video, never forget the backplates if you're going to be doing a visual effects shot. So that looks like a suitable amount of time to be utilizing the backplate. So I'm going to drop it in, make sure that it's under this layer here. And so now if I turn on all these layers, we have what is essentially this, right? So now this doesn't look like anything's happening, but because I have this right here and I want to move him, this is awkward. I will explain in a second. But because we want to be moving him, we are going to be doing a couple things. First off, we are going to be taking this and the exact moment in time that is perfect right here that we want to use, we're going to be right-clicking, selecting time, and freeze frame. What this does is it basically just freezes the whole clip. It turns it into a picture, essentially, right? So now we have a stopped man. But the issue is that even if we were to mess with this man and make him send flying back, there is already this annoying me that's already in the background. What do we do? What do we do? We replace it. That's what we do. How do we replace it? Quite simply, you make sure that this is above the secondary layer right here, but oh no, it's cutting off our man that is shooting. So what we want to do is we just want to make this a smaller piece. And we do that by, once again, using that masking tool. Boom, now he's back. All right, but yet again, there's another issue. We just can't seem to win. For right here, he disappears, and now he's back. We don't want that, do we? So that is very easily remedied by making sure that this isn't visible while basically going into it. I know I explained things terribly, but hopefully you can infer what's going on with my actions on the screen. Just there, I press Control-Shift-D once again to split it and delete it. So now, if all the timing is lined up correctly, it should just turn into him, right? Great. So now, from here, we have a frozen man that we can manipulate and move. So right now, the issue is that A, he's not moving, and B, he doesn't appear to be moving very fast. So what we're going to do is we're going to toggle switches and modes, and this toggles between two different things. Modes will be easier to utilize and toy with when we're doing the muzzle flare section of the tutorial, but for now, we are doing this man getting knocked back. So what underneath this motion blur is, it means it's going to simulate motion blur. There's an issue with this, though. If we were to simulate motion blur on any of these layers right now, it would not appear. But we want it to appear. So if we want it to appear while we're watching it so that we can view it while it's happening and we can know what it looks like ahead of time, we need to click this button right here, which enables motion blur viewing. So After Effects has a funny way of working with motion and movement. Basically, you drop down the thing, and if you want one of these different things to happen and happen over time, you need to click what's called the stopwatch button. What we want to is to move this guy to a certain position, and if we want to rotate it, we want to make sure that the rotation is also working. What this does is it turns on auto keyframing. Any animation in most programs is going to be using what's called keyframing. Keyframes are motions and pieces where the object needs to transition to move. It's an actually fairly intelligent way of animating and moving stuff. So we want him to get launched back in, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. Let's try 5 frames, right? So now, after that, we make sure we're pressing this button. If you want to just go and get the mouse tool really quickly, you can press V. Now we're just going to take them, drag them, and let's launch them and try and make sure that this line is as straight or upward if you want to as possible. So now we go back and we go frame by frame. He is zooming off camera. Yeah, see, look, it's already being launched. Now there's another issue, and let me see if you guys can spot it. That's right, he is going over the top. He is not actually going over the top of it. He is being sent flying. So, once again, we need another layer. What we're going to do is we're going to take that piece of the base layer footage once again, and this time it's going to be on the very, very top. We want it to block out everything. And in order to do this, we're going to make a separate layer. We're going to create this as a separate layer. Sorry. And we're going to mask around the entirety of the thing that he is going behind. Masking is a boring part, I realize, but if I'm doing a tutorial live, I am kind of forced to. So now, provided everything worked as planned, if we were to play this, he goes behind the object instead of in front of.
You? Who are you talking to?
Nothing, I'm doing this tutorial right now. I'm sorry, that was my sister there interrupting, making me look unprofessional. So anyways, now he's being launched. That's basically what we want. Now you can do a couple things to make sure that this actually looks a little bit better. So we can go, let's just go to the layer with our man on it and use what is one of the funnest tools, which I wish I had more uses for because it's fun to just manipulate people and bend them, make them stretchy and stuff. But a man can dream. Anyways, so what this does is it basically puts a whole bunch of points on your actor that you can manipulate and move, or any layer really. And by doing that, and you can take these pieces and manipulate them. There is one frustrating thing about it though, and that is that I do believe you have to manually manipulate these puppet pieces. Yeah. Perhaps not. Puppet. Where's the... Here we go. Now that I'm clicking on it, it'll show. So what we can do is we can basically just take these pieces of the puppet tool, pressing V to move it, and we can just bend our actor. And the idea is that we want to have his legs kind of just move and bend and be contorted like he just awkwardly got shoved back as being sent flying. And of course, this is going to be happening so fast that if it looks funny right now, it most likely will not look too incredibly funny in the finished product. So now we have, boom, and he is launched. So looking at that finally, he is being shot. Woo! Now there's going to be a simple one more piece ready to go, and that is going to be the blood and the muzzle flare. First off, I'm going to teach you the blood effect. Now, thankfully, my stock footage comes pre-keyed, but there's an easy way to key your footage if the need be. So, all this stock footage I have pre-prepared right here. It's blood elements. Action Essentials is a great place to get it, although you can find it at various places online. So, blood elements. I have my blood element. I wanted to rocket forth, so I'm going to be choosing this one in particular. And I'm not going to care too incredibly much about it staying on the person. You'll see what I mean. So we have him, and he is getting shot. not lame. But we want it to be when he should be getting shot, which is right here. So now that we know, just take the base of the blood splatter image and put it right there so that he's getting shot at the correct time. I want it to be really big. I want it to be really meaty, really chunky, so I'm putting it and making it nice and extra big. When things go by super fast in an effect, the bigger they are, the more they make an impact in the audience's mind. You can see it better. So now with the blood, it should look something along the lines of this. Yeah, nice giant blood. Of course, because we're dealing with a low resolution blood splatter, it's going to look a little funny there, but that is the issue. Actually, let's crank this down a bit, make it look a little more realistic. There we go. Realism, right? Giant blood, realism. Okay. Now that he's just getting all bloodified, if we want this to be tracked to him, we can take this and simply use what's called parenting, which is basically saying that you move if this other piece or this other layer moves. So we take this, drag it to what's called, what we named base layer earlier, and if I am correct, it should just sort of travel with them. Yep. Woo. And of course, you can take this, put it underneath the pin there if we want it to composite correctly, just like so. And we're almost done. We just have to put in the muzzle flare. The muzzle flare is so incredibly easy, but it's time consuming when you have a lot of them to do. So I'm just going to go to my stock footage repository here that I've just kind of built up over time from various things on the internet, get a muzzle flare. You can find one online fairly easily. And I'm just going to go to my nice, quick and dirty, easy pre-keyed ones right here, which is just a boom and smoke. It's probably not going to play for us because it's a different type of file. But alas, I am taking it in and putting it in. So now I'm just going to take this on the front. This is a frontward-facing muzzle flash, but it will work for what I want to do. Now, normally I say never use a frontward-facing muzzle flash for a sideways-facing flare. But what I'm doing here is I'm simply using the pen tool to kind of just give it a little bit more movement and momentum and shape going out to the side here. Now it's kind of an ugly muzzle flare. But if we want this mask to be a little more filly, you can do is just go to mask feather and feather out the mask. Now you can't see it now until I press OK, and now it's all kind of blurry along the edges. It's not going to look quite so ugly. But there's still black here. What do we do about black? It's called modes. And if it's not appearing, make sure you're clicking toggle modes and switches. Now it gives you a whole bunch of modes that you can use in order to modify with your footage. There's different random things. There's darken, which messes with it this way. There is difference, which does that. A lot of these are useful for very specific applications, but there's a couple that are really good to use. I typically like to use add because it adds some color and some brightness, but there is an issue with add here, which is the fact that it's too bright. That being said, add does remove the blackness. Same thing with things like screen. Screen's going to show it a bit better. Another one of my favorites, if I want to give it a real nice orangey tint, is color dodge, but sometimes color dodge is a little too dark. So let's just say we want screen. Let's just use screen for now. Now we have our muzzle flare here, but it's far too big, so we scale it down with these little nice buttons and dots and things of that nature. And we move it over to the side, like so. And now if we click off, we can see the outline, and it's a little funky, kind of cartoony, but that is okay, because right now, this is a TF2 inspired short. And because my muzzle flare footage goes away, naturally, we have the boom. So we press play, theory, should have the full effect ready to go. The other thing too is that most muzzle flares are usually about a single frame to 2 frames, depending on what your footage is. For muzzle flares, do 2 to 3 frames if you're pushing it. for 60 frames per second, but just a single frame if you're using 24 frame per second footage, which this is 24 frames per second footage. So it needs to be about a single keyframe. And with that, we are basically done. That should be the final effect. It may be a little bit more laggy just because I'm playing a rendered view with all the layers and things of that nature. So anyways, I'm going to switch back. Give me a moment. That is basically how you... Oh, darn it. Where's the button? I did it earlier. Okay. Go. Okay. Yeah, you need to see that end bit. And I do apologize if there were some interruptions from my sister and if I was very bad in this first run. I'm still learning how to get this going and going properly. But if you did enjoy that, I don't even know how long this is. I'll figure it out later. If you enjoyed that, make sure to subscribe because I'm going to, for every tutorial that is done, there is also an action video to go with it, and I'm going to describe some of the effects that I've done there. So anyways, guys, have a great day and peace. Also subscribe and leave a comment, especially comment if you have any questions. I know I was a little bit kind of funky with everything. If you got lost at any point, just let me know down below. I'm really trying to make this as sort of easy and basic as possible for everyone. But anyways, have a great day, everyone, and peace.